Hello, it's Dave here. It's my next YouTube video, and thank you for watching. What I want to talk about today is how to strengthen the channel of connection with your higher self, your divine self, your higher guidance. So if you're interested in taking the connection that you have and building it and strengthening it, there are some things that you can do. And so if you're watching this video, at this point, it is assumed that you're able, you have a reasonable and decent connection with your intuition and your higher guidance. You have a reasonable amount of ability to sort of breathe and calm and relax and still your mind. And you kind of know what your prime channel of connection is with your higher guidance, whether it's visual or auditory or energetic sensations or feeling or spiritual knowing, or you get your guidance through synchronicity and the world around you. So from that point, you want to build it, you want to strengthen it, you want to make it even better than it was before. There's a couple things that you have to pay attention to that can really help this. And so number one is, if you want to do this, it is not for egoic personal gain. So what a lot of people do, and I did this myself when I first started developing my intuitive capabilities, you start to think, okay, so, how can I use my intuition to help me win the lottery, pick the winning lottery numbers? Or how can I help use my intuition to, do all this stuff that may not necessarily be either fulfilling for you or even correct for you. It's just what your ego thinks you need to do. And so if you're ready to take this to another level, there's a deeper level of surrender that you have to have here. It's very important, because this is not just for personal monetary gain or material success. What this is about is living your life on a day-to-day basis from a higher place than you did the day before, from a more loving place than you did before. And so when you do that, it helps you navigate through life in a different way that is more true to you. And so this is more about, taking the path and using the higher guidance to take the path through life that is best for you. And so where the trust and the surrender has to come in is that you have to trust that where you are being taken on this path is best for you and in your best and highest interest, but also whatever comes along with that will be there, and whatever isn't necessary for that path just kind of falls away, or is not necessarily going to be a part of the journey. And so that means if having a big house or a fine car or lots of money in the bank isn't a part of your path, then it may not be there for you. It should at the very least be there in a way that provides you with the basic necessities and functions. But there's a level of trust here about what's coming to you that you have to develop. And it may not always necessarily be what your mind or your ego thinks it should be. The next key to developing that connection with your higher self is daily practices of becoming a more loving being than you were in the past. And that means more love for yourself, and that means more love for other people. And so what does that mean practically? It means coming more and actually practicing, coming from a place of compassion, coming from a place of tolerance or forgiveness, coming from a place of laughter, which is excellent, and learning to let go of things like lies and drama, and gossip or whatever. So anything that is very low vibration, especially coming from shame or guilt or all that kind of stuff, you have to have some sort of mindful practice to be able to cope with those, move through them and let them go if they're deeper emotions, or just the day-to-day stuff when you just get a little frustrated or upset or bent out of shape for little reasons that you really shouldn't be. Having a mindful practice of just being strong and centered and coming from a place of love, and those things just start bouncing off you and they don't really affect you that much. So learning to keep your vibration at a higher rate and a higher vibe, and so there's the mental component, but there's also the physical component. You really do have to take care of your physical health and your physical vitality. Diet especially, sleep, a movement practice, mindfulness, stress management, establishing boundaries, making sure your life is not overrun by others' demands or work demands or something. There has to be a measure of balance there, because as I said before, to keep in connection with this guidance in the beginning, you need a measure of stillness in your life. And so learning to keep your physical vitality high, so you can actually start to incorporate some of those higher energies into your body physically. And when those higher energies come in, sometimes they actually, push off and slough off some of the negative stuff that you don't need anymore, or can no longer carry around with you at your sort of new vibration. And you do have to have some skills and tools to be able to cope with that. So meditation and mindfulness is my choice for sure. But there are lots of other tools to do that. So keeping your vibration high, practice love, practice compassion, practice forgiveness, learn to let go, and keeping your physical vitality high. Very, very key to strengthening your connection to your higher guidance. Okay, so the next thing that you can do to strengthen that connection to your higher guidance even more is specific practices related to your channel of intuition. So if your channel is predominantly visual and you see or get images in your head, in your imagination, or dream images, your practices are going to be related to that. They're going to be things like remembering your dreams, or a dream journal, so you can remember and really get a concrete visual image in your mind of what that dream image was like. Or even lucid dreaming, if you want to go a little bit more advanced. It's going to be painting, it's going to be writing, it's going to be anything that helps you relate to what that image in your mind was. If your connection is more audio and you're very sound oriented, then anything that helps you connect with sound, chanting, singing, automatic speech, channeling, that kind of stuff, the ideas that come to you, you have to find a way of expressing them and getting them out verbally, and that will help strengthen the connections through the sound channel. If you are more feeling oriented in your channel of connection with your higher guidance, then a very good tool to practice here is body awareness, learning to know exactly the fine details of what each emotion feels like in your body. So I know if I get anxious, I get butterflies in my stomach, so I can identify that at a subtle and small level before it grows out of control. So that's just one example, and that's a negative emotion, but also positive emotions, and learning to understand and know when you walk into situations and different events, the body, what those feel like in your body without getting wrapped up or caught in them or letting them control you. And when you can develop a fine sense for that, then you can really strengthen that channel of feeling and intuition, and also practicing to learn what feelings are yours and what are not, because people that have a strong sense of feeling are often very empathic and they pick up on other people's energies. And so learning to discern the difference between when someone else is feeling angry and upset and letting that get you bent out of shape versus when it's actually coming from you. If your spiritual channel is knowing, that's a tough one to practice because it just kind of happens. But what you can do here is learn to build a recognition of when it happens and what the results are if you actually follow it, and what the results are if you actually don't follow it. in building up a cause and effect, and noticing how many times you don't follow it and you're like, oh, it takes you somewhere and you're like, oh, I should have listened, I should have followed it, that kind of thing. So that's your practice when you have spiritual knowing as your prime channel of connection. If you feel and sense energy, qigong, tai chi, learning to feel and sense energy, with your hands, and doing body scans with your hands to feel and sense energy, learning to focus on a point on your body, on any of your chakras, and on the top of the skin, just starting to feel the tingling and the vibrations there, and learning to get a sense of what that feels like in different points in your body. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but this is just general things, and that can be excellent for developing your sensitivity to energy. Just remember, your left hand is what takes in energy information. When you feel with your left hand, that is what you should be doing, is practicing feeling with your left hand, because that information comes in, and when you're using your right hand, the energy pushes out, and so you will learn and sense it and feel much better with your left hand to start. Okay, and of course, with looking for patterns and synchronicities in life, just again, the same as spiritual knowing, just building a stronger awareness of cause and effect when you follow that guidance and when you don't. Those are the things you can do to help build and strengthen your channel of intuition, even and with connection with your higher guidance, even more than previously, than I stated in the previous video. What I just want to finish off with is, the more you practice this, the more the divine aspects of yourself see you using this in a responsible way, not just for the benefit of self, but also for the benefit of self and others. The more you strengthen those channels, you're going to start to get overflow. And what I mean by overflow is, in the beginning, you're just primarily using one or two channels of intuition only, and you're building and strengthening those. But as life changes and evolves, and you grow, and you can hold a higher vibration, and you can hold more love in your heart, what happens is, it's like glasses stacked upon top of each other, and you pour water on top. Eventually that one fills up and it overflows to the next, and then they fill up and it overflows to the next, and so on and so forth. And so that happens in your physical body energetically. Your higher self is going to want to communicate with you on more than just those one or two initial primary channels. So what you have to be aware of is that after a while, some of those other channels are going to start to open up, and you've also got to start paying attention to those. And the more and more you do it, the more and more you trust it, the more and more you follow it, the more those energies will come down into you and through you. And eventually it starts to become not so much of, here's my divine self over here, and here's little old me down here, and it's giving me intuitive nudges. You're incorporating those energies into your physical body here and now. That guidance, it becomes more of a merging of your higher mind and your higher self with your physical body. So that guidance now starts to feel like it's more just coming from you as opposed to somewhere else. And yeah, like I said, it's just a merging and a connection that you're building and strengthening with time. So that's sort of the next level, the intermediate level. Hopefully there's some good information in there for you to practice and have fun with it. Again, just keep it light. Don't get too attached to the results, and don't beat yourself up too much if it's not working 100% of the time. This is an evolving process over time. Yeah, and that's it. So thank you for watching, and much love to everyone, and take care. So first off, why would you want to connect to your higher guidance? A lot of the decisions that we make in life come from our conditioning. We grew up in a certain culture, a certain country, a certain religion, certain schools, with different views and beliefs, and those beliefs are imprinted upon us. And as we grow up, we follow those beliefs, but they aren't necessarily always true to us. They're not always true to what we want in life and our true path in life. And living by those, if you haven't filtered them out, can sometimes be a very unfulfilling way. But not only that, people can also make some very, very destructive decisions sometimes. And so imagine there is a part of yourself that just loves you so much, that is just so connected with what is in your highest interest and your highest good. And the unconditional love is so strong and so indestructible and so infinite that you just can't even possibly imagine what that feels like. So if you wanted to connect with that aspect of yourself, why would you not want to do that? And so when you can connect with your higher guidance, the life that you're going to live is going to be a lot more true to you and not someone else's view or imposed idea on how they think you should be living your life. So to connect with your higher guidance, the first thing that you want to do is create a space of stillness. And so stillness is very important in building and strengthening this connection. For anyone who is beginning and just learning and interested in connecting with your higher guidance or your intuition, or doesn't have much practice there, the first messages that you get from your divine self are going to come at you in a way that is very gentle and very soft and sometimes very quick. And when your mind is racing, spinning around, I got to do this, I got to do that, it's just nonstop, that is going to block your connection. Connection will still be there, but you won't be aware of the messages that are coming through. The same thing when you're in very heightened emotional states, is that, when there's a lot of anger or a lot of greed or shame or just even ecstatic states and bliss, it's the same thing. That is so intense compared to the gentle, soft messages that your higher mind or higher self is going to give you. It just overrides that and you won't even notice it. And so we have to bring those down, the intense thought and the intense emotion, so you can get that stillness, so you can hear the soft, gentle messages that are coming through. So what is the best way to do this? The best way to do this is through breathing. Your mind and your breath are very, very intimately connected. And so as your mind goes faster, so does your breath, but it also works in the reverse. As your breath slows down, so does your mind. And so if you lay down, no phone, no TV, no radio, ideally by yourself as well, with any people around as well, in the ideal situation in the beginning. Later on that can change, but in the beginning, when you start to breathe, 3 seconds in, 3 seconds hold, 3 second exhale, 3 second hold, you've got a breath that takes 12 seconds. So that brings your breathing rate down to about 5 breaths a minute. And most people might breathe sort of between 12 and 20 breaths a minute. So when you slow the breathing down 5 to 10 minutes, that automatically calms your mind and slows your mind down. And anytime you notice your mind, racing off or wandering off, attention back to the breath, slow and steady with the pace. And if you can keep this up as a practice, it's a very good way to handle stress, but the tension in your body will also go down as well. And so when you build practice of breath and still mind, when you feel comfortable with it and you get to a point where your body is relaxed and your mind is, it's not totally 100% still, but at least it's a little more quiet than it was, what I want you to do is think of a question and ask that question to yourself when you get into that state, and be open and receptive to what happens next. So you have a question, and now you are waiting for the answer. But first, you have to know how the answer can come to you. It can come to you in many different ways. It can come to you as a noise. It can come to you as a vision or a sort of a daydream or, imagination, but some type of visual image in your mind. It can come to you as a feeling. It can come to you as an energetic sensation, goosebumps or hair standing up on your arms or just a tingle of energy up your spine or somewhere on your body. A feeling of cold or a feeling of hot, also energetic sensations. It can come to you as a deep knowing without any other feedback, or it can come to you as an external message or a sign or something that happens outside of you. And we'll just sort of elaborate on each of these. It's just really good to be aware of, because if in your mind you're focused that the message your higher guidance is going to send to you isn't a vision, but it wants to connect to you through feeling or energy, and you're not paying attention to that, then you're going to miss the message. So everybody has a stronger channel of connection with their divine self, and it's in one of these categories. And initially, when you're beginning, the connection is going to come through your strongest, easiest channel, and you have to know what that is. So if you're laying there and you hear a little sort of kind of noise in your ear that lasts about 5 or 10 seconds and then it goes away, that can be a message from your higher guidance in the audio form. So imaginary images, or images that come to you through your imagination, are also very quick, very brief. I would practice sometimes looking for parking spots, and before I would leave on my destination, I would close my mind. Okay, where's the spot going to be, in this area or this area? And I'd wait for the image, and then I would trust that, and then I would go. And if it comes through feeling, and some people are very feeling oriented, it's always going to happen less so when you ask the question, but more so in the moment of taking the action. So if you're very feeling oriented, action is required more so than any other channel of intuition, because that's when you're going to get your message. And then the energetic sensations I talked about with spiritual knowing or intuitive knowing, it's the toughest one to trust, because there is no other feedback other than you just know, and there's nothing to validate that with. So that one is a little bit more advanced. It can be tougher to trust, and that is usually, but that can be your strongest channel. You may not have open access to any of the other channels yet. So if you know that, then you know what to look for when you're asking your question. And then, of course, external signs from the universe. You ask your question, and obviously this is not going to happen right in the moment of asking your question. It's going to happen later. And I should just expand on this point, because that does happen sometimes. You're laying there, you ask your question, and nothing happens, because you could be so focused, what is the message, what is the message, or what is the answer, that intense thinking actually blocks the channel of intuition. And so sometimes you'll ask the question, but it will happen later in the day. It won't happen in the meditation itself. So you still have to have a reasonable amount of stillness and open and awareness, but oftentimes it happens when you're not actually thinking about the problem or the question at hand. So just be aware of when you get an impulse or an intuitive nudge that relates to your question that you asked earlier in the day. Okay, and then like I said, messages from the universe. Sometimes you might see a name come at you over and over again. You might see a series of numbers repeating over and over again. You might hear certain conversations that different people in different places and times are repeating over and over again, or a certain verse of a song repeats over and over and over again, and it seems like it's your mind wants to write it off as coincidence, but because it happens so much and so frequently, or it's so specific to what the question you have was, it creates that reaction and that impulse inside, that feeling or the energetic sensation, whatever it is for you, that you know there's more to it than just randomness and coincidence. Okay, so those are the different channels. So when you ask your question and you lay in open awareness and your mind is still, be ready for the answer, but it may, also be ready that it may happen later in the day. But just as a note, do your best in the beginning to make sure that your answer is either a yes or no. Don't ask for anything too complicated, no open-ended questions, no questions that require complex dialogue or interaction, because all you want to do at this point is strengthen the channel. So yes or no answer, something that ideally you're not too deeply attached to the end result. So also, if you're attached to the end result, that can also block the answer, because the answer you may get is maybe not the answer that you want to hear, and you just only want to do this other thing anyways, and your mind will just, your ego will take you off in that direction, and it will block the intuitive impulse again. So that's it, beginners, how to connect with your higher guidance. In the beginning, just play with it, have fun, don't take it too seriously, don't be too attached to the results, don't beat yourself up if it's not working right away. It does take practice and it does take time, but in the end, it is definitely something that is a very worthwhile skill to develop and tool to have in your toolbox when navigating your way through life. So thank you very much for watching the video, and take care.